That was before you were born.
Oh, give me a break. Aren't just why I love you for saying stuff like that.
She was called the Queen of Technicolor, the fiery Irishwoman who could go toe-to-toe with John Wayne and win. While other actresses stayed silent, Maureen O'Hara called out Hollywood's darkest secrets, risking everything. She feared no one in an industry built on fear. But nothing could have prepared Maureen for the moment she stood her ground against a director so powerful they called him the King of Hollywood. He had 4 Oscars, decades of classics, yet Maureen walked away from him without ever looking back, and the reason why will leave you stunned. The Queen of Technicolor. Maureen O'Hara was, by all accounts, one of the toughest people ever to navigate the treacherous waters of Hollywood's golden age. She had a backbone of steel and a temper that matched her hair, and it was precisely because of that reputation and that refusal to be pushed around that she eventually did something few actresses of her era would dare. She stood up to one of the biggest names in the business and decided, quietly and firmly, that she would never work with him again. And the reasons for that decision would remain private for decades. She was born Maureen Fitzsimons on August 17, 1920, in Ranelagh, a working-class neighborhood in Dublin, Ireland. She was the second of 6 children born to Charles Stewart Parnell Fitzsimons, a clothing businessman, and Marguerite Lilburn Fitzsimons, an opera singer. From her mother, she inherited a love for the arts and a voice trained in music. From her father, she gained a practical understanding of business and the value of hard work. That combination would serve her well. The family was Catholic, close-knit, and deeply committed to giving their children opportunities they themselves had not enjoyed. Despite financial challenges that grew more pressing during the Great Depression, her parents encouraged education and artistic pursuits, even when those pursuits seemed impractical for a young woman in 1930s Dublin. The Ireland of her childhood was not a place that encouraged girls to become actresses. Society expected women to marry, raise children, and stay out of the spotlight. The Catholic schooling she received reinforced these expectations, emphasizing modesty and obedience over ambition and self-promotion. But Maureen had something inside her that would not be denied. At the age of 10, she began training at the Abbey Theatre School, Dublin's legendary institution that had launched some of Ireland's greatest dramatic talents. There, she studied drama, voice, and movement under instructors who demanded perfection. It was harsh training, but it built in her a resilience that would prove essential when she later faced the male-dominated machinery of Hollywood. As a teenager, she continued her training at the Guildhall School of Music in London, where she excelled in drama and voice. By her mid-teens, she was already performing in stage productions and radio plays, developing a reputation for her striking looks and natural talent. She was, by any measure, a prodigy. She mastered fencing, sang with a trained voice, and acted with a confidence beyond her years. It was clear to everyone who saw her that she was destined for something larger than Dublin could offer. That something arrived when she was just 17 years old. The legendary actor Charles Laughton, one of the most respected performers of his generation, saw her in a screen test in London. He was immediately impressed by her presence, her intensity, and her willingness to hold her own in a room full of powerful men. Laughton signed her to his production company, Mayflower Pictures, and gave her a new name. Maureen Fitzsimons became Maureen O'Hara, a name that sounded more fitting for the kind of strong Irish heroines he imagined her playing. Her first major film role came in 1939 in Alfred Hitchcock's Jamaica Inn. She played Mary Yellen, a young woman caught in a web of coastal pirates and deception. It was a solid debut, but it was her second film that same year that changed everything. In The Hunchback of Notre Dame, she played Esmeralda opposite Charles Laughton's Quasimodo. The film was a massive success, and Maureen O'Hara was suddenly an international star at just 19 years old. The 1940s saw her rise to the pinnacle of Hollywood fame. She signed with RKO Pictures and later worked extensively with 20th Century Fox, becoming one of the most sought-after actresses in the industry. It was during this period that she earned her enduring nickname, the Queen of Technicolor. The newly developed Technicolor process, with its rich, saturated colors, loved her. Her red hair and fair skin were photographed in a way that made her stand out from every other actress on the screen. Directors and cinematographers fought to work with her because she made their films visually unforgettable. But her success was not simply a matter of good looks and good luck. Maureen O'Hara brought something else to her roles, something that set her apart from the typical leading ladies of the era. She played strong, independent heroines. Her characters were not waiting to be rescued. They fought, they argued, and they stood their ground. In a Hollywood that preferred its women compliant and decorative, Maureen O'Hara refused to be either. She pushed back against studio control, against typecasting, and against the men who tried to tell her what she could and could not do. This defiance made her beloved by audiences but difficult for the studio system to manage. She was not an easy woman to control, and she paid a price for that independence in ways that would become clearer as her career progressed. Over the decades, she would accumulate honors that reflected her true place in cinema history. She received the Irish Film and Television Academy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004, and in 2014, at the age of 93, she was awarded an honorary Academy Award for her contributions to the art of film. It was a long overdue recognition from an industry that had often struggled to appreciate her while she was in her prime. But long before those honors, long before the retrospective appreciation, Maureen O'Hara had already made her mark. And at some point during those peak years, she made a private decision about one of Hollywood's most powerful figures, a decision rooted in an incident she would carry with her for the rest of her life. When Maureen O'Hara called out Hollywood misconduct, the Hollywood that Maureen O'Hara entered in the late 1930s was not the glamorous paradise it appeared to be on screen. Behind the studio gates and carefully constructed publicity images operated a system designed to keep young actresses vulnerable and compliant. It was called the casting couch, a euphemism for something far uglier: the expectation that women seeking work would submit to the inappropriate advances of the men who controlled their careers. Producers to directors and executives wielded absolute power, and they used it. Most women had no choice but to endure it in silence. To speak out was to invite professional destruction, and so the silence persisted, year after year, protecting the powerful and sacrificing the vulnerable. But Maureen O'Hara was different. She was only 25 years old when she decided she had heard enough. In 1945, she sat for an interview with The Mirror, a London-based newspaper. She was already a star by then, with films like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and How Green Was My Valley. Behind her, she had worked with Alfred Hitchcock, with John Ford, and with some of the most powerful men in the industry. And she had seen and experienced things that she could no longer keep to herself. In that interview, she did something almost unheard of for an actress of her stature. She spoke openly about the harassment that pervaded Hollywood. She described the pressure she faced from executives who expected favors in exchange for roles. She explained that her refusal to participate in this culture had led to attempts to sabotage her career. She said, "I am so upset with it that I am ready to quit Hollywood." Here was a major star, at the height of her powers, saying publicly what dozens of other women whispered privately. She was willing to walk away from everything rather than compromise her integrity. The response from the studio system was predictable. Executives and producers who had never liked her independent streak now had a reason to punish her. She was labeled difficult. She was called uncooperative. These were the standard terms used to discredit women who refused to play by the rules. Her reputation as a fiery Irish woman, a label that had followed her since her early days in Dublin, was reinforced by her refusal to back down. She later summed up her approach to the industry in a way that captured her spirit perfectly. "I acted, punched, swashbuckled, and shot my way through an absurdly masculine profession. As a woman, I'm proud to say that I stood toe-to-toe with the best of them." The immediate aftermath of her interview was tense. There were certainly those in Hollywood who would have been happy to see her disappear. But she had something working in her favor that few other actresses possessed: raw, undeniable talent combined with genuine audience popularity. The public loved her. Her films made money, and in the bottom-line world of studio filmmaking, money had a way of silencing even the most powerful enemies. Maureen had spent her entire life proving that she could hold her own against anyone, and she would continue to prove it, not only in her professional battles, but also in her personal life as well. The same strength that allowed her to challenge Hollywood's powerful men would also carry her through a romantic life marked by chaos, heartbreak, and unexpected turns. Maureen's chaotic marriages. Like many young women trying to find their way, Maureen made mistakes in love. Her first 2 marriages were painful lessons, experiences she would later describe as deeply troubling. They shaped her, hardened her, and taught her that the happy endings she played on screen were not so easy to find in real life. The first man to win her heart was George H. Brown. They met in the late 1930s in London while Maureen was working for Charles Laughton's production company, Mayflower Pictures. Brown was a British film producer born in 1913, and he had worked his way up through the industry in unusual ways. Before becoming a producer, he had been a stuntman, a singer, a dancer, and an assistant director. He had worked on Jamaica Inn in 1939, the film that marked Maureen's first major role. They were thrown together during the intense work of making movies, and something sparked between them. Maureen was only 19 years old when she married George H. Brown in 1939. The wedding took place in London, just as her career was beginning to take off. Brown was older than her and more established, and he seemed to offer a sense of stability as she prepared to leave Ireland and England behind for the uncertain world of Hollywood. But the marriage was troubled from the very start. Years later, in her autobiography, "'Tis Herself," Maureen admitted that she had married too quickly without really understanding what she was getting into. The union lasted only 2 years. In 1941, it was annulled. There were no children, and Maureen walked away with a valuable lesson about the dangers of rushing into commitment. The failure shook her confidence in relationships and made her more careful, or so she thought. Not long after the annulment, she met William Houston Price. It was the early 1940s, and Maureen was already gaining real traction in Hollywood. Price worked in the film industry too, as a screenwriter and director, but he never reached the level of fame that Maureen did. They married in 1941, the same year her first marriage ended. This second marriage lasted much longer than the first, more than a decade, from 1941 to 1953. Together they had 1 child, a daughter named Bronwyn Bridget Price, born in 1944. Bronwyn was Maureen's only child, and the two would remain close for the rest of their lives. Maureen often brought her daughter along to film sets, trying to balance the demands of motherhood with the relentless schedule of a Hollywood actress. On the surface, she was building a family, but beneath the surface, things were falling apart. In her autobiography, Maureen revealed that this marriage was deeply troubled. She wrote that fans would be shocked to learn what she endured in her first 2 relationships. She did not go into explicit detail, but she made it clear that the marriage to William Houston Price was painful and damaging. Price struggled with alcoholism, a disease that placed enormous strain on their life together. His drinking made him unreliable, unpredictable, and difficult to live with. The marriage finally ended in divorce in August 1953. Maureen was left to raise Bronwyn largely on her own while continuing to carry the weight of a demanding Hollywood career. She did not have the luxury of stepping back, of taking time to heal. The bills needed to be paid. The films needed to be made. She kept working, kept moving, and kept smiling for the cameras. But behind the scenes, she was a single mother trying to hold everything together, carrying the scars of 2 failed marriages and wondering if she would ever find the love that seemed to come so easily to others. These early experiences shaped her in profound ways. They made her wary of men, cautious about love, and fiercely protective of her independence. They also prepared her for what came next. Because Maureen O'Hara would marry one more time, and that third marriage would bring her both great joy and a loss so deep it nearly destroyed her. The loss that shook her. After 2 failed marriages, Maureen O'Hara had every reason to give up on love. She had been hurt, disappointed, and left to raise a daughter on her own. But in the 1960s, a decade after her divorce from William Houston Price, she met a man who would change everything. His name was Charles F. Blair, Jr., and he was unlike anyone she had ever known. Blair was a brigadier general in the United States Air Force, a record-setting aviator, and a senior captain for Pan American World Airways. He had made history with transatlantic flights and contributed to military aviation strategy during World War II. He had been awarded the Harmon Trophy, one of aviation's highest honors. He had written books about his experiences in the sky. He was, by any measure, a remarkable man. But to Maureen, he was simply the person who made her feel complete. They met in the 1960s, and their connection was immediate. Blair admired Maureen's strength, her independence, and her refusal to be anything other than herself. She admired his courage, his brilliance, and his confidence. They married in 1968. Maureen was 47 years old, while Blair was 59. Both had lived full lives before finding each other, and both understood that what they had was worth holding on to. Their marriage was deeply loving. Maureen later described Blair as her perfect match, the man she had been waiting for her entire life. In 1969, she walked off the set of a film called How Do I Love Thee to join him on a whirlwind trip around the world. It was his last major journey before retiring from Pan Am, and she refused to miss it. They traveled to New York, Germany, India, Thailand, Hong Kong, Japan, Hawaii, and San Francisco, a final adventure before settling into the next phase of their lives together. After Blair's retirement, the couple moved to the Virgin Islands. Blair had founded a small commuter airline called Antilles Airboats, and they ran it together. It was a simple life, far from the glitter and pressure of Hollywood. Maureen loved it. She was no longer Maureen O'Hara, the movie star. She was just Blair's wife, a woman living in paradise with the man she adored. However, on September 2, 1978, that paradise ended. Blair was piloting a Grumman Goose seaplane for Antilles Airboats. Shortly after takeoff from St. Thomas, the aircraft suffered mechanical failure. The plane crashed into the water, killing Blair and 3 other people on board. Maureen received the news in the worst way imaginable. Her husband, her perfect match, the great love of her life, was gone. She was devastated. The loss was so sudden, so complete, that it threatened to destroy her. For years, she had fought through every challenge Hollywood could throw at her. She had survived 2 painful marriages, raised a daughter alone, and built a career that most actresses could only dream of. But this was different. This was the one loss she had never prepared for, the one pain she could not fight her way through. And yet, she fought. In the months after Blair's death, she made a decision that surprised everyone who knew her. She took over leadership of Antilles Airboats. She became the first woman president of a commercial airline in the United States. Despite her grief, despite her lack of experience in running an airline, she stepped into the role and made it work. She managed the company for 3 years until it was sold in 1981. It was her way of honoring Blair, of keeping something of him alive in the world. After selling the airline, Maureen largely stepped away from Hollywood. She had no interest in returning to the industry that had once consumed her. She had no interest in publicity or premieres or awards. She wanted peace, and she found it in her private life, in her memories of Blair, and in the quiet years that followed. She later confessed that his passing was the most painful event of her life. But it was also the moment that forced her to dig deeper than she ever had before, to find reserves of strength she did not know she possessed. The loss of Charles Blair marked the end of Maureen O'Hara's romantic life. She never remarried. She never again found anyone who compared to the man she lost that September morning. But the tragedy did not mark the end of her battles. Even in her later years, even as she tried to live quietly and privately, she found herself drawn into one final fight against the damage of lies, the rumors, and the libel case. In the Juneteenth 50s, there was a magazine that terrified Hollywood. It was called Confidential, and it made its money by destroying reputations. Founded in 1952, Confidential published stories about the private lives of celebrities that no other publication would touch. While some of these stories were true, most were exaggerated, and many were completely fabricated. But truth did not matter to Confidential. What mattered was selling magazines, and the public could not get enough of scandal. Confidential targeted the biggest names in entertainment: Liberace, Ava Gardner, Frank Sinatra, and dozens of others. The magazine thrived on exposing secrets, real or imagined, and the stars who found themselves in its pages had little recourse. Suing a magazine was expensive, time-consuming, and drew even more attention to the very stories they wanted to bury. Most celebrities simply endured the humiliation and hoped the next issue would target someone else. But Maureen O'Hara was not like most celebrities. In 1957, Confidential ran a story about her with a headline designed to sell copies. It was the hottest show in town when Maureen O'Hara saw cuddled in row 35. The article claimed that she had been seen at Grauman's Chinese Theater engaging in intimate behavior with a Latino man. The story suggested she was having an affair, painting her as immoral and scandalous. For a woman who had spent her career fighting for respect, who had spoken out against the very exploitation the magazine represented, the accusation was unbearable. The story was completely false. Maureen knew it, and she decided to prove it. She filed a libel lawsuit against Confidential magazine in 1957, joining a small group of celebrities willing to take on the gossip giant in court. It was a risky move. The magazine had deep pockets and a team of lawyers who specialized in defending these cases. But Maureen had something on her side that Confidential could not match: evidence. When she took the stand, she testified that she had never even been in row 35 of Grauman's Chinese Theater. She had never engaged in the behavior described in the article, and she could prove it. At the time the magazine claimed the incident occurred, she was in Spain, filming Fire Over Africa. She had witnesses, travel records, and a production schedule that placed her thousands of miles away from Hollywood. Her testimony was powerful, clear, and impossible to refute. The trial was part of a larger legal battle against Confidential, which faced multiple lawsuits from angry celebrities. In the end, the 1957 prosecutions ended with a mistrial, and many of the related suits were settled out of court. But Maureen had made her point. She had stood up, told the truth, and cleared her name. And while the experience did not destroy her, it left scars. For a time, the scandal damaged her public image. In Hollywood, mere association with rumors could be enough to make studios nervous. Executives worried about controversy. They worried about boycotts and bad press. Maureen had to work hard to rebuild the reputation that Confidential had tried to tear down. The libel case reminded Maureen that Hollywood was full of people who would tear you apart if you let them. She had spent her entire career fighting against men who wanted to control her and a system that wanted to exploit her, and she had survived it all. But there was one person in the industry she could never quite forgive, one colleague with whom she had a falling out so complete that she openly confessed she didn't like him. The man she never worked with again. Throughout her long career, Maureen O'Hara worked with some of the most powerful men in Hollywood. She held her own against studio executives, gossip magazines, and the entire machinery of an industry designed to keep women in their place. But there was one man she could never quite figure out, one man whose genius she respected, but whose behavior she could not tolerate. His name was John Ford, and he was perhaps the greatest director she ever worked with. He was also the one person in Hollywood she eventually refused to work with again. John Ford was a legend. He directed some of the most important films in American cinema. He won 4 Academy Awards for Best Director, more than any other filmmaker in history. Actors lined up to work with him, hoping that some of his genius would rub off on them. Maureen O'Hara was no exception. When Ford cast her in How Green Was My Valley in 1941, it was a career-defining moment. The film won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Maureen's performance cemented her place in Hollywood. Ford saw something in her that he liked: her fire, her independence, and her refusal to be pushed around. He cast her again and again, and they produced some of the most memorable moments in cinema history. But behind the scenes, it was anything but peaceful. John Ford was notorious for his temper. He berated actors, humiliated them in front of crews, and pushed them to their breaking points in pursuit of the performances he wanted. He was a tyrant on set, and everyone who worked with him knew it. Most actors accepted his cruelty as the price of working with a genius. They swallowed their pride, took the abuse, and collected their paychecks. Maureen O'Hara was different. She refused to be intimidated. On the set of The Quiet Man, Ford clashed with her repeatedly over the character of Mary-Kate Danaher. Ford wanted Mary-Kate to be more submissive, more willing to bend to the will of John Wayne's character. Maureen refused. She understood something Ford did not, that the film's magic depended on Mary-Kate being strong, independent, and unwilling to break. She fought him on scene after scene, insisting that her character maintain her dignity. In the end, she got her way, but the battles left scars. Maureen later revealed that Ford could be mean, but he respected her because she never backed down. However, that respect did not make him easy to work with, and as the years passed, Maureen began to sense something else beneath his behavior that made her deeply uncomfortable. Decades later, love letters from Ford to O'Hara were discovered. They revealed that the director had developed feelings for her that went far beyond professional admiration. He addressed her affectionately as herself, a term of endearment that revealed his emotional attachment. Maureen did not return these feelings. She valued Ford as a director, but she was disturbed by his volatility and the intensity of his emotions. She kept her distance, maintaining a professional relationship while guarding her personal boundaries. The breaking point came during the filming of The Long Gray Line in 1955, when Maureen walked into Ford's office unexpectedly and saw him kissing another man. She was shocked by the discovery. In her memoir, "'Tis Herself," she described the incident openly, noting that it added to her discomfort with Ford. He was already difficult, already unpredictable, and already prone to cruel behavior. Now there was this secret, this hidden part of his life that she had accidentally stumbled upon. The relationship became even more complicated, even harder to navigate. After their final collaborations, Maureen made a quiet decision. She would not work with John Ford again. It was about years of battling a tyrant on set, fending off emotional intensity she did not want, and protecting herself from a man whose genius came wrapped in cruelty. She respected what he had done for her career. She acknowledged that he had made her a better actress, but she could not subject herself to him anymore. In her autobiography, she put it plainly, "He was a tyrant, but he was also a genius. I loved him, but I never liked him." If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.